Well, it does say good morning, but since we're not in California, we will say good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Thank you for traveling. I know some traveled a long way. Jeffrey, you can feel sorry for me now for what I go through. Small Business Committee has heard many accounts of the skills gap and its detrimental impact on small businesses and the American economy. To help close the skills gap, America needs an arsenal of workforce development strategies that balance the immediate needs of employers, long-term goals of employees, and the rapid evolution of technology. Today we will focus on apprenticeships, a centuries-old workforce development practice that combines on-the-job learning with related technical instruction. Registered Apprenticeship, or RA, is one of 40 federal workforce development programs spread across 14 agencies. RA has been effective because it enables workers to earn while they learn, is flexible to meet industry needs, and generates evidence-based results. Last June, President Trump issued Executive Order 13801, which established the Task Force on Apprenticeship Expansion to identify strategies and proposals to promote apprenticeships, especially in high-growth sectors where apprenticeship programs are underutilized. I'm looking forward to hearing more about these programs from our panelists. Specifically, how can RA programs be customized to combat the skills gap at the community level while still meeting strict national standards? What roles do small businesses play in the apprenticeship system? What kind of incentives can we offer to encourage greater participation in the RA system? I think we can also add there, how do we get more folks to know what there is out there? I think that what we talk about here sometimes is getting the message out, whatever we're talking about, for people to understand that there are maybe a program out there, or there are things that can help you do what you want to do. So I really appreciate everyone coming today, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say. And now I yield to the Ranking Member Murphy for her opening comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While our economy has improved in the past decade, small business owners continue to face challenges finding skilled, qualified workers. By 2020, it's estimated that our economy will have approximately 55 million job vacancies. About 40% of these jobs are expected to be new openings, while the remaining 60% will be jobs left vacant by workers from the baby boomer generation. This is a staggering projection. When viewed in combination with the current workforce skills gap, it underscores the importance of enacting policies to ensure that our country produces skilled workers capable of performing the jobs of both the present and the future. One way we can do this is to expand the use and improve the quality of apprenticeship programs across the country. The apprenticeship model allows individuals to work for employers, earn a salary, and get valuable on-the-job training while also receiving classroom instruction specific to that occupation. Apprenticeships provide individuals with an opportunity to work towards a credential or certification in their chosen profession. In return for their investment, employers benefit from having employees who can hit the ground running and have the specialized skills necessary to do the job well. Since 2011, the number of apprenticeship programs in the United States has increased by nearly 30%. Nevertheless, apprenticeships are still underutilized, and their value is often insufficiently understood, especially by small businesses that may lack the resources or knowledge to take advantage of the opportunities that apprenticeships offer. The federal government is partly to blame, having rolled back investments in and oversight of private sector apprenticeship programs and other workforce development initiatives. Naturally, as technology continues to advance, our workforce needs will continue to evolve. In order to ensure that our economy can remain globally competitive, it's critical that we create incentives for apprenticeship programs that will lead to the creation of good jobs, better wages and salaries, and higher economic productivity. At the same time, we must remain standards of quality assurance so that apprenticeship opportunities are available to all workers, including veterans, women, and minorities. Today's hearing offers us the opportunity to better understand these challenges and explore solutions to help our nation's job creators prosper. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses on how apprenticeships can help revitalize our workforce and ensure America's small businesses are empowered to move our economy forward. I thank the witnesses for being here, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I wrote down baby boomers because I think That is one of the terms that we're going to use quite a bit, and I think Congresswoman Murphy hit it on the head that we're always looking at the baby boomers as the ones who are retiring out, but I'm the next generation. I am 2 years outside of the baby boomers, me, and I have friends that are now looking to retire. So now the next generation, I don't even know what you call us, are starting to think about retirement or thinking to maybe move out of what their career is and maybe do something else. So it's going to be a big, big problem, not just with baby boomers, but you know, it's starting to really affect. So we have a couple of rules. You get 5 minutes to speak, and first, if committee members have an opening statement prepared, which I don't see any, I ask that they be submitted for the record. The lights are going to go on. You're going to get green until you get to 4 minutes, and you're going to go to yellow, and then you're going to go to red. So at the end of 5 minutes, if you see that red, just start to, you know, work your way out of the conversation. Okay, let's see. We have some long introductions. We should probably get less qualified people coming in here so we can get smaller bios. Okay, now I'd like to formally introduce our witnesses. Our first witness is Ms. Tammy Simmons, Vice President of Human Resources and Marketing at Machine Specialties Incorporated in Whitsett, North Carolina. Her business runs a registered apprenticeship program for skilled manufacturing positions. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to go, let's see, our second witness is Mr. Jeffrey Forrest, Vice President of Economic and Workforce Development at the College of the Canyons in Santa Clarita, California, right in the heart of my district. He is co-founder of the Strong Workforce Apprenticeship Group, or SWAG, which is also a great acronym. Thank you, Jeffrey, for being here today. Our third witness is Janine Coons, the Vice President and Director of Training and Development of Tooling, USME in Cleveland. USME, is that right? Or USME? Okay. Out of Dearborn, Michigan. Very close. Tooling USME delivers customizable, competitive-based learning and development solutions to the manufacturing community. Ms. Coons is an expert in manufacturing workforce development and serves on the executive committee for America Makes. Thank you for being here. And now I'm going to yield to Ms. Murphy to introduce our last witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Jeffrey Mazer. Mr. Mazer serves as the Executive Director of Launch Code, a nonprofit organization that is focused on building a skilled workforce by creating pathways for individuals seeking careers in technology. Mr. Mazer previously served as the Executive Director of the Missouri-Kansas Council of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, and prior to that, he was a senior advisor to Missouri Governor Jay Nixon. He holds an undergraduate degree from the University of Missouri and a law degree from Georgetown University, which I might also add has a great graduate program in foreign service. Welcome, Mr. Mazer. Thanks for being here today.
Okay, and we will start with Ms. Simons. You have 5 minutes, and we look forward to your testimony.
Thank you, and good afternoon. Thanks for having us. So I am the small business that you talked about that have been struggling. Machine Specialties is going to celebrate 50 years next year, and we have high-skilled positions in welding, CNC setup machinist. We produce parts that go on the F-35, the F-15, the B-1B bomber, a lot of helicopter parts. We also service the medical industry with hip and knee replacement parts, surgical instrumentations, as well as parts on the satellites. So our growth is limited to the amount of skilled employees that we can have to make those very precise parts that are going to be shot up into space or that are going to fly our aircraft. For years, we've tried to think outside the box and go and recruit more employees. The positions that are the most skilled in our positions are, like you said, are in the baby boomer generation. So what are we going to do now to not only replace the ones that we have that want to retire, but also to grow our business and take on new customers? We first heard about apprenticeships through another business in Charlotte, North Carolina that had been doing it for 22 years. And they offered a youth apprenticeship model. And when I attended the meeting, I was a little bit skeptical. We had never recruited youth into our business. We have about 170 employees. And we looked for the most skilled, the most talented people that we could find that had years of experience to make these parts. But because they had been so successful and they had a really interesting model that by recruiting young talent before they decided to go off maybe and not sure what they did, you know, we all hear the statistics about how many students go to college but then don't finish and try to find their way. They went into the high schools and found students that were very interested in building and creating and making things with their hands, that were very successful in the CTE types of programs, and we're smart. We're good in math. They had some criteria that kind of spoke to us. They looked for an unweighted GPA of 2.5 because the students in the apprenticeship programs also earn a 2-year degree. They looked for 5 absences or less because as employers, we have to have employees who attend work every day. So we correlated attendance in high school with attendance in the workforce. We looked at, like I said, the math grades because a lot of the positions that we hold require a lot of thinking, logic, and reasoning. So if that kind of led to a good, successful candidate, and if they were already taking electives in their school. So that, as a business, appealed to me that you had some criteria that you set up. Also, they talked about being in a consortium of other small businesses and medium-sized businesses or large businesses, but you got some buying power when you did this. So when we went to the school system, it wasn't just one company like myself knocking on the door at the local high school near me saying, can I talk to your drafting students who might be interested in working for me? We went as a consortium, our consortium now has 26 companies. We have the superintendent of our school board sitting in on meetings with us because she's very interested in growing and promoting this program. So we had buying power with the school system, so we got a chance to talk to the educators and to the kids in the high school that we wanted to recruit. We also got a little bit of buying power with the community college system. One of the key attributes to the type of program that we have is that our students go to community college to earn their 2-year degree 1 to 2 days a week, and then they're in our facilities the remaining part of the week. So as a business owner, it's very hard to think that you're going to have keep people coming in all day long. By blocking the classes for us so that maybe they only go to class on Mondays and having them in our facilities from Tuesday to Friday to earn those on-the-job training hours really spoke to me as an employer. I thought that this is something that we could implement and utilize. So when we first started, we had 6 advanced manufacturers want to participate in the program in our first year. We recruited 14 students. It was such a success that our president, our vice president of operations came in to me one Saturday morning and said, this apprenticeship program is a home run. The kids are learning so fast, much faster, more productive than we ever thought they would be at this early stage. And they're willing to learn. You know, we always talk about this younger generation and the work ethic and what that's going to be like, but there's study shows, and New America has done a study that shows that apprenticeships have much more loyalty with their employer when they start as a young apprentice. The turnover rate that they quoted is like 90% after 3 years of finishing an apprenticeship, and that's huge. That's much stronger than anything I can do when I hire outside the door. Our company has continued to stay in this. We now have 15, and we're looking to recruit 25 more apprentices this year. Also, our consortium has grown. We went from 6 companies the first year to 11 the next year to 26, and over half of those are small businesses. We've also reached across the state, the county lines, and we've helped other programs just like us launch, get in touch with their school systems, with their community college as a formal education provider, and work it. So it's employer-led, and the employers are the customer. I mean, they're the ones that are going to be hiring these students and training them on the job. So once you have a partnership like that, it kind of spreads the workload around. So that's how that one employer can go out and be part of a consortium, get really good talent into their workforce, have them educated, and kind of share that work burden. And my time is almost running out. I have so many stories that I could tell you about not only what it has done for our business. That was the first stage. When we got in the first year, like, this is great for us. So then I wanted my other business employers that I'm on a manufacturing committee to know about this. So that was exciting. But then I also became so engaged with the students. I had students the first day of college say, I never thought I'd have the opportunity to go to school. I never thought that I would have a career. Once they received their letter, they said, I finally feel like I have a direction in my life. So then that got me more impassioned, trying to help more students get opportunities and in different areas. So our consortium is now not only advanced manufacturers, but it's field service technicians, and those are like electricians and HVAC. I'm finished.
Okay, we will go on to Mr. Forrest from the great community college of Canyons.
Thank you and good afternoon, Chairman Knight, Ranking Member Murphy, and to the distinguished guests who are here with us today. Thank you for this opportunity to provide testimony today on how the Strong Workforce Apprenticeship Group supports small business, along with recommendations on how to fund and expand apprenticeship to sustain our growing economy. College of the Canyons is under the leadership of Chancellor Dr. Diane G. Van Hook, and we're committed to working with employers, students, community stakeholders to develop innovative solutions that promote equity, skills attainment, and economic growth in the region. Recently, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that in the month of February, non-farm payroll increased by 313,000, while the unemployment rate remained at 4.1%. Now, while these numbers are encouraging, behind these numbers, there looms a crisis, and it is the shortage of skilled labor, and it poses one of the greatest threats to our nation's ability to sustain its economic growth. And no entity is more impacted by this crisis than our nation's small businesses. They comprise more than 99.7% of all businesses in 2016, and they're the backbone of the United States economy. Because of their limited resources, our small businesses are not able to compete with the large companies for talent, and they lack the operational capacity to attract, train, and develop their own workforce. So what small business needs today is a model of apprenticeship that allows them to, one, upskill their workforce, and two, be able to implement easily and efficiently. In response to that need, the Strong Workforce Apprenticeship Group was formed, referred to as SWAG. The Strong Workforce Apprenticeship Group was founded by myself and Tracy DeFilippis, Apprenticeship Coordinator with Goodwill, Southern California. The name SWAG is taken from Strong Workforce and Doing What Matters for Jobs in the Economy, a California community college initiative that was developed by Vontan Quinlivan, Executive Vice Chancellor, Workforce Digital Futures for the California Community College Chancellor's Office. SWAG helps our small businesses by doing the following. First, we partner with them to recruit, attract, and place individuals into apprenticeship. We also provide instruction to incumbent workers to create a pipeline of talent to fill critical positions. Second, we handle the administrative heavy lifting associated with managing an apprenticeship, making it a more attractive option for small companies. Bill Bowden, General Manager of Repair Tech International, says this about SWAG. We could not imagine doing this alone. The high-level coordination frees our organization to move in new levels of productivity and efficiency. Third, SWAG provides curriculum that is relevant and up-to-date through our partnership with Tooling U, a leader in online education in the field of advanced manufacturing. In addition, we're working with the National Institute for Metalworking Skills, known as NIMS, to integrate their certifications into our training model. SWAG is currently funded through the California Apprenticeship Initiative. The goal of this program is to incentivize partnerships between community college employers to develop apprenticeship. I'm proud to say that in the 7 months that SWAG has been launched, we have acquired more than 50 apprentices, and over 75% of them come from underserved communities, veterans, minorities, women, and other underserved population segments. And while we are the fastest growing model of apprenticeship in California currently, what we know is this: without access to a consistent funding stream, SWAG, like the many other initiatives that came before it, will end up in the workforce development graveyard, which leads us to offer the following suggestions on how we can fund and grow apprenticeship to continue to support our small business. First, we must fix the funding. Tax credits and similar incentives can go a long way in helping small business embrace apprenticeship as part of their employment development strategy. Second, simplify the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. Ladies and gentlemen of the Subcommittee on Contracting and Workforce, meet WIOA. 399 pages of single-space 10-point font legislation. Hidden somewhere in these pages is funding for registered apprenticeship for on-the-job training. Navigating this legislation is tedious at best. We got to find a way to streamline it. We need to also look at incorporating some provisions of the Prosper Act, such as the 25% cap on private sector employment from federal work study program, eliminating that, along with the provision to access apprenticeship. We need to strengthen the Department of Labor by personnel funding, upgrades to technology, and helping it in updating its existing work processes so that it can continue to provide the critical services needed by the workforce development community. We must also look at competency-based education and celebrate and support those educational institutions like College of the Canyons that are working to integrate it into their educational framework. And then in working with small businesses, dozens of them, what we've learned is this: effective apprenticeship demands strong partnership. Our workforce development system must come together if we're to remain a competitive force in the global economy. In conclusion, we wish to thank the members of the Subcommittee on Contracting and Workforce for allowing us to share how SWAG supports small business and your leadership and your commitment in creating prosperity for all Americans, and we look forward to addressing any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. And all the way from Dearborn, Michigan, Ms. Kuntz.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Knight and Ranking Member Murphy and the guests for the opportunity to provide some insight around this important topic of apprenticeships and how small businesses are using apprenticeships to solve the skills gap. For 85 years, SME has been dedicated to the health and competitiveness of the manufacturing industry. We do that through developing the workforce and promoting advanced technology. And as you've heard from the other witnesses here, it is a very significant threat that the skills gap has on the manufacturing industry right now. And we've been doing a study for the last 5 years, and it hasn't changed, it's getting worse. And when we ask manufacturers the question of how difficult it is to get to find skilled labor, we find that 88% are saying, I'm having a difficulty finding skilled labor to do the work I have in my organization now, let alone into the future. When we ask a little more into that research, what is that doing to your business? They're telling us it's affecting their productivity, their innovation, quality, safety, profitability, right? These are all very key things to running businesses here in manufacturing. And so when we look at that and we look at the fact that Jeffrey brought up about that 90-some% of all manufacturing businesses are small, we know that small businesses need to thrive in order for manufacturing to be successful as well. And small businesses, unlike large businesses, have a little bit added challenge, right? We all know the CEO is wearing the HR hat, is wearing the custodial hat, and the plant manager hat. Small businesses can't always provide the same kind of benefits and packages that large companies can. So these added challenges really put pressure on the small businesses, I think, as well articulated by Tammy. So when we look at how do we help those small businesses, we certainly look at something like apprenticeship, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. We certainly know that there's lots of things, and I think Chairman Knight, you talked about the arsenal of tools that are needed to address the skills gap. But there's no doubt that apprenticeships is a key part, and Jeffrey and Tammy did an excellent job, I think, articulating that. And what we're seeing is the number of retirees and the baby boomers that you referred to that are exiting the manufacturing industry. Those skilled laborers, those journeymen, those apprentices that have all that knowledge, unfortunately, manufacturing historically has not done a good job building up that pipeline, hasn't done a good job building structured, sustainable programs. It's a little bit of follow me and watch what I'm doing on the job. Well, that doesn't work. We really need a very strong, structured, sustainable program for onboarding and on-the-job training, of which apprenticeship programs very much have. So SME supports the nationwide Department of Labor apprenticeship programs with a competency-based approach, right? That's the change from the past where it was much more time-based. It was more about how much time you put into a program. Now we're able to look at programs much differently, look at the knowledge and skills that are required to perform in the jobs today, and look towards how people can be assessed towards those knowledge and skills. So we're more oriented towards a competency-based program versus time, which also reduces the amount of time it takes to get people in the jobs doing effective things that move the organizations forward. As Jeffrey articulated, we're a good, strong partner here with SWAG, and I think you did an excellent job talking about your program. So it's not one I will mention here, but I think, and it was interesting to hear Tammy talk about the consortium. A couple of things that we're noticing, because we get the opportunity to work across the country, so we get to work with the small, the mid, and the large companies. But we are seeing that these organizations and these consortiums are coming together to really help represent multiple small organizations. One I'd like to mention through our partnership is with a group called MACNY, and it stands for the Manufacturers Association of Central New York. And what they basically represent 300 manufacturers, a lot of small to mid-sized manufacturers across central and upstate New York. And when they were talking to those members, like we would expect, those members were struggling with, hiring and finding people, finding the right skills. So MACNY went about how do they go and create these partnerships, these collaborations with the schools, organizations like SME, where we could look at the knowledge and skills and then start to drive towards what's needed 80% of the way, and then help the companies be able to have the flexibility to drive it to their own particular needs. One interesting thing that MACNY also did was look at a pre-apprenticeship. So it was working with the high schools, dislocated workers, veterans. So again, now that we're looking at apprenticeships inside these small companies, how do you start to look at, again, the pipeline of even getting those kinds of people into the system? So pre-apprenticeship program in the high school. We have some good examples where some companies are looking at how to take those pre-apprenticeships into an apprenticeship program and then into a career pathway into a college degree program. Many great things are happening in those kinds of examples. In summary, the health of small businesses is vital to manufacturing success. The largest OEMs in the world are relying on these small businesses. And all too often and not, I can't even tell you the number of times we hear businesses say that they're having to turn down orders, delay their expansion of their business because they can't find the right people, just things that we don't want to see continue. So apprenticeships is a proven and needed piece of a company's workforce development strategy, helps the businesses build a pipeline, grow internal talent, reduce recruiting costs, improve productivity. We thank the Subcommittee on Contracting and Workforce for taking the time to address this very important and clear issue that we have in front of us as a nation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mazur, you are up.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Murphy, for the opportunity to appear today. Again, my name is Jeff Mazur, and I'm the Executive Director of LaunchCode. LaunchCode is a national nonprofit founded a little over 4 years ago, designed to help fill the tech talent gap. There are about 600,000 unfilled tech jobs in the U.S. today, according to BLS. The number is going to be about 1 million by 2020. So there's a lot of gap to fill in the tech industry. We try and do this in a few different ways. One way that I won't spend a lot of time talking about is by providing free, accessible, job-focused training in coding. We teach people to code to a level where they're ready for an entry-level role as a developer. The other piece of what we do that I will spend a little more time talking about today is job placement, and particularly the apprenticeship in the software development space. Over the course of our 4 years of existence, we've helped more than 1,000 people start their careers as junior software developers, computer programmers. And we think that apprenticeship, as with my colleagues at the table, is a really powerful tool in doing that and helping those people start those careers. And so part of what I wanted to share today was a little bit about what our learnings have been as we've tried to build a program that really utilizes apprenticeship in a space, in an industry, and in job types that typically it hasn't been used a lot in. And so 4 sort of principles or items that I wanted to point to that we've kind of distilled through our learnings in working with, last year, more than 124 employers to place entry-level junior developers. One of those things is flexibility. It's easy to imagine a job posting and a training program for a welder. We sort of know and understand what a welder's job is, and that's kind of probably standard across many different employers in terms of what the core skill set is. When we think about a job posting for a software developer, it could be that there are dozens or hundreds even of different languages or frameworks that may be at play there. And so having an apprenticeship, in our case, an apprenticeship with standards of apprenticeship, we serve as an intermediary. We have those standards that are flexible and that can accommodate the many different needs of different sorts of employers is really critical to success in adoption by those employers. The other piece that we found is essential is integration of apprenticeship into existing processes of hiring and doing business that our employers have. One of the things that's a surefire way we found for an employer not to want to work with us to use apprenticeship to bring developers into their system is if they have to build substantial new infrastructure in order to accommodate those people. And so having a again, a intermediary-based program where that infrastructure can live outside the walls of their company, outside the walls of their institution, and still build people with the sorts of skills they need is really critical for them to adopt and use apprenticeship and bringing new software developers onto their teams. The third piece, I want to echo what many others have said, is really around the notion of competency-based programs. And I want to particularly identify two key threads here in the way we braid competency-based notions into our program. The first being that people should get, quote-unquote, credit for competencies that they're bringing to the table at the front end. If people have already developed and we have a common way of measuring and understanding what someone's skill is as they come to the table, then they ought to get credit and not have to complete as much in terms of the related technical instruction. And so, again, that's a mechanism both for having these things be based really on the skills that are necessary and also abbreviating the period of time that one may spend in an apprenticeship before they're ready for work. The second piece of the competency-based component that we focus on, again, is that rather than having a time-based approach to time in program as a function of when someone has completed the program and is ready for journeyman status, is instead focusing on competencies. And in our case, we try and build a program that's very focused on making sure that employers themselves, hosting employers, are saying, these are the competencies that we need this person to have achieved in order for them to have successfully completed this program. And then, with assistance, allowing them to judge when someone has completed the program rather than have it being a rote function of time and program. And so we found that to be a key thing, not just for adoption, not just for building our program, but for employers to really feel like this is a process that works for them. And the final piece that's sort of tied with the competency-based piece is that these things should be accelerated, particularly in tech when technology changes so quickly. The skills that you're learning today may be obsolete 6 to 9 months down the road. And so if it's a 2-year program, you may have people spending lots of time learning something that they're never going to actually get to deploy in the field. And so designing a program that, in our case, may have 20 weeks of classroom instruction and 90 to 120 days in an on-the-job focused programming situation is a way that allows us to get those people quickly the skills they need and get them quickly into the workforce, because employers in tech need those jobs now if they're going to fill that gap. I'm again grateful for the opportunity to appear today, and I'm delighted to answer any questions.
Well, thank you all. So, you know, I know Stephanie and I write a lot of notes up here. Hers are probably way better than mine, but I typically write notes on what you're saying and what I think you're saying. So when I hear integration, I hear you got to give me a puzzle piece that fits. So you got to give me somebody that can come in and can work, and I don't have to do something special there. They're just going to come in and work. When I hear competency-based, what can you do? Are you ready to do the job? If you are, then I want you. You don't have to have 4 years of schooling if you learned it in 1 year, and I can have you in my business and you can be working. And fast is always, you know, what small business talks about is how fast can we do something? How fast can we turn the wrench or whatever we need to do, because that's how I get paid. So I'm going to go into just a couple questions. You know, the first one I think I alluded, how do we get the info out? How do we get it to small businesses across the country? I'm a huge proponent of our community colleges and of trade schools and tech schools as kind of a conduit to do something that maybe you can do fast. I know at colleges, Canyons, or many of the other community colleges across the country, they can move and they can be agile. And so if you need something to work on an F-35 as a supplier, you might go to them and say, these are the people, these are the skills that we need. They need to have basic schematic skills. They need to have basic math skills. Then we can move them into where we need them. But they need to have those before I can even look at them. We have a program in Palmdale that's called the AFAB right now, and Northrop Grumman came to us, and so we went to the community college out there, and they built an 8-week program. And at the end of 8 weeks, those kids have a 96% chance of getting hired. I don't know what the other 4% are, but that's what they told me, 96%. And they're hired at a good rate, they're hired into a great company, and they're on their way to a career. That was just working with a community college and saying, can you do this? They said, yep, we can do this, and they did it. So apprenticeships, that's what I see, and that's what I think we're going to have over the next 30, 40 years, there's going to be these holes that if we don't fill them quickly, then we're going to lose those jobs, or they're going to be outsourced, or something that's not going to be what we want. So my first question is, about 74% of kids that graduate high schools today are not eligible to go into the military. So the military always comes to us and says only about 1 in 4 kids can go into the military for various reasons. There might be a medical reason, there might be something else. But several of the reasons I push back on and say, you know, you should probably look at these. But a lot of those kids you're looking at too. I mean, you're looking at, if those 24% are now looking at colleges or looking at something else, you're trying to grab them. So I think that's kind of my first question, is how do we reach out to the high school kids? And then my second question is, how do we reach out to the junior high kids and say, what do we need to get them into a kind of a skilled learning so that they can do the jobs, maybe in the community, maybe it's for automotive manufacturing, maybe it's for something else. And how do we get them involved at maybe a 7th or 8th grade? And I know we've got VEX and we've got robotics and we've got all kinds of programs to kind of push STEM. But we really have to make sure that kids know that, you know, here are the jobs in the community. How do we get you looking at that? It doesn't say we don't want you to go to college, or it doesn't say we don't want you to do other things. It just says these are skill-based. This is a skill that you can learn and you can look to be hired at some of our jobs here. And we had the chairman of the full committee on small business, Shabbat. Mr. Shabbat, are you just going to sit there, or we want to chat?
I'll wait till you're done with
Okay.
your questions and the other side. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so anyone, we can go right down the line.
Okay. So we also think that messaging is a huge problem with, I guess, the awareness of apprenticeships. We thought that just going into the schools and letting the students hear some of the opportunities would be our biggest avenue, but I feel like we have to re-educate the educators of what a great opportunity these apprenticeships are. And the careers that we're all talking about here, you know, they make well over $55,000, $65,000, $70,000. Some of them will punch a clock and make over 6 figures. The jobs are in high demand, and they're going to be increasing in demand. So the educators have to be aware that these are really good opportunities for all students, not just the ones that they think can't go to college. Also, we have to send a message to the parents that these opportunities are out there. I hear parents and they're like, I never knew this was there. Do you have apprenticeships for adults? You know, how can we get in this? So part of the thing is, I think, is a huge marketing campaign on just awareness of what apprenticeships can do and the career values that they have. And also, apprenticeships are a great stepping stone for a 4-year degree. Our company is looking at, in the future, only hiring engineers that first go through our apprenticeship program. We think they're going to be much stronger, and we're going to help educate them and get the 4-year degree after we pay for their full degree. And I forgot to mention that our apprenticeships programs are valued at $125,000. The students receive benefits and 401k, and they're actually paid for the class time that they're sitting in college earning that degree. When you talked about going into the middle schools, yes, I realized into our 2nd year that by the time we see juniors and seniors, it's almost a little bit too late. Most of the time, they don't even know about the career opportunities that are available or what these jobs look like, what area they work in. So we, in our school system, are trying to get middle schoolers out into the different industries that have careers and have jobs available to them when they graduate. But now that I'm a 3rd year into it, I'm also thinking, like the German style model, we also maybe even need to be planting those seeds in 1st and 2nd grade. You know, like, what does an electrician look like? What kind of tools do they have? Where do they work? Just so that when they get into the middle school, they might have been thinking about that. You know, when you talk to a young schooler, most of the time they say, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a vet, or I want to be a sports. I mean, those are the things that they see on TV. But educating them maybe even in the grade schools about other opportunities, especially the ones that we know are going to be in such high demand coming up.
Well, and I'm going to go on to Ms. Murphy. I agree. I think that you're seeing a transition right now, especially when we talk about STEM. If you thought that there was going to be a female aeronautical engineer 40 years ago, you would have had to search this country for one. Today, we understand there's a huge push in the last 10 years in college, but we have a lot of that kind of push to get people to understand you can do this, these are the opportunities. Same thing with males in nursing. 40 years ago, you probably would have had to search the country. Today, males know nursing is an opportunity. So it is kind of a change, and I think the earlier we can get to kids and we can say, look, you absolutely can do anything. I'm glad you didn't say politician and what they were looking to be when they grew up. But they absolutely can be anything. Sometimes it's not that they don't believe they can, it's that they don't know that that opportunity is there. So, okay. Ms. Murphy, I've taken plenty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Simmons, I found the conversation really interesting because I think what you're pointing out is that there's a social bias against technical careers and apprenticeships. And I'm interested in hearing some of the other witnesses' suggestions on how we break down some of those social biases that are maybe preventing the number of students going into some of these skills. You know, one of the interesting things is I've spent a bit of time in my community going to see apprenticeship programs, and certainly the skill set required for a car mechanic, for example, is no longer the grease monkey kind of thing. It's, can you work a computer? Do you know how to program? Some of the things that Mr. Mazur talked about. And so I'd be curious if the other witnesses had any thoughts on how to address that, the pipeline, the demand for some of these programs.
Well, one of the things that we're doing in California is we've launched a campaign in which we've taken CTE, Career Technical Education, and we've rebranded it and called it Career Education. And we've launched it into the movie theaters, in which we show young people in apprenticeships working in careers such as automotive technology. And then it's a part of the preview of the movie, kind of a commercial, trying to really help change the culture and dynamic and narrative of career education. Another thing that we do is we host a manufacturing day. We actually go out to all of the junior high schools in our region, and we bring the kids to our campus for a full day of understanding what the manufacturing and STEM fields hold for them. And we bring in companies that come in and speak to them. There are company tours. We also bring in a gentleman who is probably one of the most greatest icons in advanced manufacturing, Titan Gilroy. He comes in and speaks to the young people as well. And we generally bring between 300 to 400 individuals along with their parents. And so that is happening. But I will say again, I agree with you, Ranking Member Murphy, that one of the greatest challenges is changing the perception of career education in the minds of both the parents and in the mind of the high school and junior high educational institutions, because the message has to come from them in order for it to really have that long-lasting impact, because they're the ones who are going to be with those students in those very formative years. And so that would be the critical component, is getting our educational institutions to realize that our high school and junior high schools, that this is a very, very positive alternative for their students, and that not everyone was meant to go to a four-year college or university, and that it is not it is not a negative thing if they choose a career in a machine shop, whereas where I started my career at what was McDonnell Douglas. And so certainly that's the thing. We have to change the messaging and the perception.
If I could add a few things to that, and Ranking Member Murphy, you mentioned kind of even getting more minorities and women involved in manufacturing in these career paths. A couple things that SME is doing, I will say on the front of, if you've heard of 3D printing, additive manufacturing, we do quite a bit. I mentioned as an organization to help manufacturing, we not only develop the workforce, but we try to move technology forward. And we recently launched a new apprenticeship program around 3D printing in collaboration with the Robert C. Byrd Institute, as well as America Makes, one of the Manufacturing USA institutes. And I bring that up because that's an example where sometimes we think of the traditional, and I think we've covered that pretty well, the welders, the machinist, the maintenance technicians, which is all really important. Mm-hmm. But we also have these new jobs that are entering the field, which will help us change the image and the perceptions of manufacturing around high tech, high touch, high challenging jobs that when we've done some workshops with young men and women, we see the women really gravitate to 3D printing, kind of this more design, creative art side of it. And so I think there's things like that too that are a little bit maybe non-traditional new technologies that'll also help shape the perceptions. Another initiative is also the career counselors. I sit on a national coalition of career counselors, coalition regarding career counseling, which is really trying to get at the fact that there's not enough funding related to career counselors, the number of career counselors, the ratio to the number of students, and that they're really not able to do career counseling. They're a lot of times dealing with other issues related to behavior or whatever it might be. So that's also impacting, I think, what is being told to the students. So not only the parents, what's happening in the media, but also the career counselors. And lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't say that I think one of the challenges is what's happening actually in the schools. There are some schools that have tremendous programs that when you go into the school, so now let's say we get these kids to think, I want to go pursue a career in something technical. But if they walk into that school and the equipment is 30 years old, the curriculum is old, and I'm not faulting the school, I'm saying the funding side. So we're challenged there too. So when the students enter a program that is robust and meeting the needs of the manufacturing community today, we're in good shape. When we don't, we kind of fall short, right? We got them in the pipeline, and now all of a sudden they come in, and now it's a validation of maybe what they were told before. And so we have to do things there. And our Education Foundation does quite a bit to work with local employers who really look at the education system as part of their supply chain, one of their critical suppliers of people. And those employers that decide to actually put their money forward, donate it to our Education Foundation, we go and we work with the administrators, with the community, and with the school hand in hand to look and audit their program, to look at their curriculum, to look at their career counseling, to look if they have a middle school camp that feeds into the high school, and look at the technology, all of the things, and basically then take that money from those corporate donors and make sure it goes towards the kinds of things that builds up the program in those high schools or those career and tech or career education programs. Thank you.
Thank you. I see that my time has expired. You're okay? Okay.
I'd weigh in just briefly on that same question. I mean, we face in the tech and software development space a sort of different cultural perception gap, and that's this idea oftentimes people have that people have to be born to code. There's some 5% of the people out there who have the special coding gene, and it's only those people who are going to be software developers, and when in fact that's not true. And so we try to be very clear with people that this is an opportunity that anyone who has certain foundational skills can take advantage of. Do you have 10th grade math skills? Do you have basic proficiency in logical reasoning and problem solving? Do you have basic digital literacy? And if you have that foundation, then really almost anyone can build the other pieces that will allow them to move on down the road towards a career as a software developer. And so in our program, in our experience, in a world, in a realm where if you look at software developers and the demographic makeup of those groups, it's by and large still today white men, oftentimes young. We've been able to build programs. We have a Coder Girl program. We have other programs that are designed to really help people see other people who've gone through this experience who share a shared story with those folks. And so we've seen our education programs, for instance, in 2017, get to a point where even though probably 17% of the software developers in the U.S. working today are women, 47% of the people who were enrolled in our programs were women. People of color, again, very underrepresented in the field. About 38% of the people who took part in our training and education programs in 2017, people of color. So if you can understand people what the real challenge is and what the opportunities are there, then I think you can start to break down some of these other kind of cultural concerns and barriers that keep people out.
Great. Thank you so much. And you back.
Chairman?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple questions. I think I'd start out with this one. Could you discuss any resistance that you still see perhaps in some parents because they don't want their kids necessarily to have a job where they're going to get their hands dirty or maybe be in the skills trades and I see a lot of heads nodding, so I'll start down this end. And what can we do about that? Is it an education process? Is it kind of like realistically understanding what's in this economy and where the jobs are? Or just what would you suggest?
So most of the parents have a view of some of the jobs that the students could go into in as an apprenticeship, the old model, dirt floors, low lighting, and that is not what advanced manufacturing and some of these apprenticeship opportunities look like today. So we require any student that's interested to bring a parent or guardian in for a tour to one of the companies that is offering the apprenticeship so that they can see. And a lot of times the students go home excited and saying about this opportunity. They're going to pay for my education. They're going to pay for me to be in school. And the parents are like, it's too good to be true. And one thing you learn in life is if it sounds too good to be true, it is. But once they come in and they see that every piece of equipment we have has a computer on it, you could eat off of our floors, then they want to know how they could get a career in this, and they want the opportunity. And one other thing is going back to the CDCs in the school, Jackie Smith is an apprentice of ours, and right before he turned 16, him and his dad bought a car to work on so when he could drive. And he realized at that first time that he loved working with his hands, and he was good at it. He had never been able to take any CTE classes in his high school because he had a 4.4 GPA. He was smart. He was on the track to go to college, and his career counselors said, no, you need to be in all these AP courses. He fought his junior year after working on the car with his dad to get into an automotive class. And at that school, he had the opportunity. He never even wanted to have the opportunity to hear about our apprenticeship program. He had the opportunity to hear about it. He brought his mom and he brought his dad in, and they agreed. And he says, if I would have been in college now, I probably would have been miserable. I may have dropped out. I would have spent a lot of money on it. I'm doing something I love, and I'm going to make just as much money had I gone the 4-college route. And I'm getting it all paid for. He's 19 years old. He has a 401k. He has full benefits, and he's enjoying what he does every single day. So it's a message to the parents and to these educators that these opportunities are great for them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Forrest. I saw you nodding there too. So if you would.
Sure. Yeah, the key is always getting the message over to the parents. And one of the ways in which we do that, even at the community college and in some high schools, is through the creation of a makerspace at those particular facilities. And the makerspace provides an environment in which these young people are able to go in and explore these careers that involve hands-on training. We have a makerspace at College of the Canyons, and some of our high schools have makerspaces as well. And so that creates an excellent environment for the children and their parents to get to see what it's like to be in this type of career field firsthand. And so I really recommend that most of our educational institutions, especially at the high school and the junior high level, consider a makerspace relationship, either with one that exists as a private public relationship, or try to integrate one into their own educational setting. The other is that we do whatever we can to make sure that we provide opportunities for these young people to be able to build within their own pursuits of their own careers, the opportunity to do something that's related to making something as part of their curriculum. It has to be integrated in there at some point. And once that happens, even if they're not good with their hands, as some people like to say, still giving them that access and that exposure, I think, is critical to getting them involved and excited.
Thank you very much. The other witnesses want to weigh in? Or yes, sir?
I'd say just a few words. I would. We serve probably a slightly different age range than other folks at the table serve. The preponderance of the people we've served over time are in the 24 to 40-year-old age range, and so we have a non-trivial number of people who have gone. They have a 4-year degree, and they got a degree in English or history or literature, and in the couple years since, they've been working 18 hours a week at the FedEx Kinko's or doing other things, never having had the opportunity to have that educational experience kind of launch them into a career that they found fulfilling. And so they find us then, and they build a new skill, and we place them into a career in tech, and they go off on their way. I think that experience and the experience of those people may resonate with the parents of someone who is sort of insistent that someone go down the path of a 4-year degree. That there are plenty of examples of people who go down that path and have a great experience, and it's the right thing to do. There are plenty of others who do that, and it's not the dream they thought it was, and so that may be an instructive lesson for parents and young people out there making this choice.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My time is about to expire, so I'll yield back.
Thank you, Chairman. I just have two final questions. One was about schools, and I know Ms. Kuhn said, if you walk into a classroom and it's got 30-year-old stuff, it's tougher for the kids to get involved. I know that I went into a school recently, and a company given a lot of this stuff that they had been working on, and the kids were very, very involved. They were very happy. They knew that they were working on equipment that was of this generation, and they were excited about that. But I've also been in classrooms that you've got the 30-year-old microscope or something, and it's a paperweight right now. So I do think the connections to the businesses, if you're working with a business and you're saying, hey, we're going to be your pipeline, you got to help us. I agree that government should be very involved in this, but the businesses should be very involved. If we are going to give you what your most vital aspect is, and that's skilled labor, then you got to help us get them skilled. So.
Absolutely. I think, you know, we certainly are very big advocates for the fact that the corporate industry, and we get the opportunity to work with a lot of companies, which is great, but we do make the message very clear that your number one asset is human capital. Every company can go buy the same CNC machine. Everyone can buy the same materials. A lot of those companies have same access to the same kinds of technology. What makes an organization unique is the people behind the technology. It's the people programming, the people planning, the people designing, the people maintaining the equipment. And so here it is, this number one, you know, kind of asset and competitive advantage for an organization. But all too often, it's normal. A manufacturer's thinking about supply chain of its components, where it's coming in, the quality of the parts. And sometimes the human capital side is not thought of. So certainly as a message we carry forward that we all have a role, and the corporate industry certainly has to look just like it would if they had a supplier who was delivering components that didn't have the right quality and met the right specifications, right, to build the plane or to build the car, whatever it might be. If the students are coming out with not the right specifications to meet the needs, you've got to go work with your supplier. And that's an important part and aspect of the community involvement, and is an important part of the development of their own organization strategy going forward. So we really encourage that organizations build that into their strategic business plan, is their human capital strategy. And how they can work with schools, I think, is a very critical way of doing that.
And Mr. Mazur, you said something, you know, and I think Mr. Forrest will say the same thing. A lot of these people aren't 18 years old. A lot of these folks are 30, 35. If you go to a community college today, you do find your 18-year-olds, but you do find a lot of people that look like me. And they are looking to get a new skill or transition, or their job was let go. Indeed. And now they need a skill. Those are very, very important aspects, and that's what happens at what you're doing. That's what happens at what apprenticeship programs are doing, or community colleges, or but you hit on one issue. We're voting. Coding. So when I was a senator in California, I went to a small company, Microsoft, and asked them about what they needed for jobs. And they had a program called TEALS, and it was basically to put computer science into high schools that didn't have computer science. We actually brought that into our district. It's in 5 high schools right now, and that gives a kind of a pipeline into kids going into college or into apprenticeship. And then I talked to them about getting coders. And I said, you know, at a community college, we can get you a coder. Probably an 18-month certification, maybe less. We can get you coders. Now, some companies in America want a 4-year degree. Sure. I get that. But I don't get the fact that if you've got 6,000 job openings and I can get you them in 12 months or 18 months, why wouldn't you take them? So I think that that's where you're going is, you know, if you've got the aptitude and we can teach you, is that where we're going with what you do with coding?
Absolutely, and I think it ties into your previous question too about sort of the notion of the responsibility of companies and employers to kind of own that process and support it and be advocates for apprenticeship. You know, we've placed hundreds of people in apprenticeship. We have a registered apprenticeship. We've never received a single "we owe a dollar" in support of our registered apprenticeship programs. We've tried to build and design a product and an opportunity that employers want to pay for, and so our apprenticeship, our processes and our program that we've built for apprenticeship is all driven by essentially success fees, placement fees that our employer partners give to us for providing them someone who has the skill to do what they need to do. And so, you know, building that product, building that opportunity that scratches the itch that employers have, which is how do I build a sustainable and continuous pool that's growing of junior talent that's going to sustain me as this need continues to grow over time? And at the same time, how do I create that pipeline in a way that gives employers an incentive to actually fund it and make sure that it goes. And so, we haven't perfected that, but that's what we're trying to do. I was talking with Mr. Forrest beforehand. Last year in 2017, we're a nonprofit, so we raise money and we get grants and other stuff. But in 2017, 54% of our total budget came from our earned revenue stream from employers. And we expect that in 2018, that's going to be between 70 and 74%. So, we're trying to continue on down the road of building something that truly has a market niche that employers want to touch and grab, and that will help make more people successful. It'll help make us successful as an organization, and it'll help fill this growing gap. So a lot of those pieces touch one another, and I think it's important we think about all of them.
Well, thank you all for coming. We appreciate your testimony today. Registered apprenticeship is experiencing a resurgence in popularity among policymakers on both sides of the aisle. We look forward to the findings of the task force on apprenticeship expansion, and we will be eager to hear small business that participate in RA programs. I ask unanimous consent that members have 5 legislative days to submit statements and supporting material for the record. Without objection, so ordered. This hearing is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there you go. Good.
Thank you.